Welcome back to my channel, Pocket Change Coins. If you're excited about finding hidden gems in your pocket change, you're in the right place. First, we're going to uncover some of the most valuable and rare US coins that could be worth a fortune. Let's dive in. We're talking about one of the most fascinating coins in American history, the 1917 wheat penny. It's small, it's old, and it's made of humble copper, but don't let its appearance fool you. Because this little 1-cent coin has stories etched into its surface, and in rare cases, it could be worth a life-changing fortune. So make sure you stick around to the end, where we'll reveal the unbelievable value one of these coins reached at auction. Let's start with a bit of time travel. Picture America in 1917. The United States had just entered World War I. The nation was in the middle of rapid industrialization, women were stepping into the workforce, and the streets of cities buzzed with automobiles, trolleys, and telegraphs. During this transformative time, the U.S. Mint continued producing coins that would be used in everyday life, coins that passed through the hands of soldiers, factory workers, and schoolchildren alike. One such coin was the humble Lincoln wheat penny. First introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, this penny was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. On the front, you'll see Lincoln's strong, thoughtful profile. On the reverse side, the words, 1 cent, are flanked by 2 stalks of wheat, symbols of America's agricultural roots and growth. Simple. Honest. Strong. Just like the values Lincoln stood for. Now, let's zero in on the 1917 version of this coin. The S stands for the San Francisco Mint, one of the 3 mints operating at that time, and it produced a significantly lower number of pennies compared to its Philadelphia and Denver counterparts. That lower mintage means fewer coins were made, and even fewer have survived in collectible condition over a century later. These San Francisco pennies were circulated heavily. Most of them were used and reused until they were worn smooth. It's rare to find one even in decent shape, let alone in mint state. But every now and then, one of these historic coins resurfaces in a way no one expects, preserved through time like a frozen moment from the past. So why are collectors so fascinated by the 1917 wheat penny? First, it's about rarity. With over 100 years of circulation behind it, most examples of this coin are damaged, scratched, or so worn down that they're barely legible. But finding one with crisp details, strong strike marks, and original luster? That's a numismatic miracle. Second, there are varieties and minting quirks that drive collectors wild. Some 1917 pennies show signs of doubling, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated due to shifts in the die during the minting process. These double die errors are extremely valuable, especially when confirmed by professional grading services. Third, there's the historical charm. This coin didn't just exist, it witnessed the birth of a modern America. Think about where it's been: pockets of soldiers boarding ships to Europe, store counters during the Roaring Twenties, maybe even buried in someone's backyard for decades before being rediscovered. Every scratch and shine tells a story, and here's where it gets exciting. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A worn 1917 penny might fetch a few dollars or maybe a few hundred if it's in better than average condition. But one incredibly rare example, struck cleanly, preserved in nearly perfect condition, and graded as a top-tier mint state specimen, shocked the coin world. This wasn't just a nice coin. It was pristine. A true survivor. And when it came up for auction, collectors from around the world took notice. Bidding skyrocketed as history and rarity collided. Now, for the moment you've been waiting for, that single 1917 Lincoln wheat penny, preserved against the odds, was ultimately sold for an astonishing $615,000. That's right. Over $500,000 for a penny. A coin that originally bought you a piece of candy, a stamp, or a newspaper, now valued higher than most luxury cars or even a home. So what's the lesson here? Never underestimate what's in your pocket, your coin jar, or your grandparents' attic. That tiny copper coin you've overlooked for years could be a hidden masterpiece, a piece of history, and maybe, just maybe, a ticket to financial surprise. Second rare coin, we're diving into one of the most iconic and widely circulated coins in American history, the 1945 wheat penny. It's a simple 1-cent coin made of copper, but don't let its small size or face value fool you. Because for those who know what to look for, this ordinary coin could be anything but. Stay with us, because what seems like a humble penny could actually be a hidden treasure, one that, in rare and extraordinary cases, has sold for a price that will absolutely blow your mind. Let's begin by turning back the clock to the year 1945. World War II was drawing to a close. The world had seen devastation, sacrifice, and courage on an unimaginable scale. Across the United States, victory gardens still flourished, ration stamps were still in use, and letters from soldiers remained the only lifeline for families waiting at home. It was a year of hope, of endings and new beginnings, and during that pivotal moment in American history, the United States Mint continued producing coins for everyday use, including the now famous Lincoln wheat penny. The wheat penny had been around since 1909, created to honor the great Abraham Lincoln on the 100th anniversary of his birth. It was the first American coin to feature a real person's portrait, and it quickly became a staple of U.S. currency. With Lincoln's profile on the front and 2 wheat stalks on the back, symbolizing prosperity and strength, the design became an enduring symbol of American values. Now, here's where things get interesting. The 1945 wheat penny was minted in enormous quantities, more than 1 billion in total, produced in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. These coins were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a slight shift from the steel pennies used briefly in 1943 to save copper for the war effort. By 1945, copper was back in use, and the wheat penny was again the reddish-brown coin we all recognize. With so many produced, you might be wondering, how can a 1945 penny possibly be rare? Isn't it just another common old coin? Well, not quite. You see, it's not just about the year, it's about the details. Some 1945 wheat pennies contain small differences that set them apart. These are called varieties or mint errors, and collectors absolutely love them. We're talking about coins with double dies, where letters or numbers appear twice because of a slight shift during the minting process. There are also off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and repunched mint marks. Each of these features can drastically increase the value of the coin, but that's not all. Condition matters a lot. A penny that has been through decades of wear and tear, tossed into pockets, jars, and junk drawers, might be worth a few cents. But if you find a 1945 penny in pristine, uncirculated condition, still glowing with its original luster, it becomes a different story entirely. The fewer the scratches, the brighter the shine, and the sharper the details, the higher its potential value. Now, imagine this. A 1945 wheat penny struck in Philadelphia, free from any mint mark but perfectly preserved. The color is flawless, the detail on Lincoln's face is sharp, and the wheat stalks on the reverse are fully visible with no smoothing. On top of that, suppose this penny was struck with an error, perhaps a double die or a rare planchet mistake. That coin suddenly becomes one of the rarest known examples of its kind, and when collectors get wind of a specimen like that, things get serious. Bidding wars erupt at auctions, and prices shoot up fast. Because in the coin collecting world, rarity plus condition plus historical context equals serious value. So now, the moment you've been waiting for. What's the highest known value ever paid for a 1945 wheat penny? One such coin, flawless in condition, authenticated by a professional grading service, and featuring a rare mint error, was ultimately sold for an astonishing $480,000. That's right. $480,000. For a penny. So the next time you find yourself digging through an old coin jar, or flipping through your grandparents' change collection, take a closer look. That 1945 wheat penny might not just be a memory from the past, it could be the key to a future fortune. Third expensive coin, we're talking about the 1950 Lincoln wheat penny. A coin that most people would ignore, but that could, in extremely rare cases, be worth an amount that will make your jaw drop. And yes, we'll reveal exactly how much at the end of this video, so stick around because you don't want to miss it. Let's start with the year 1950. America was standing at the edge of a new era. World War II was over, soldiers had returned home, and the economy was booming. Families were moving into new homes, television was becoming the centerpiece of the living room, and the country was in the early days of what would become the American dream. And during all this, the U.S. Mint continued striking coins that would quietly pass through millions of hands, coins that carried the face of Abraham Lincoln and the wheat stalks of prosperity. The Lincoln wheat penny had already become a staple of American currency by this point. First introduced in 1909, it was created to commemorate Lincoln's 100th birthday and quickly became one of the most collected coins in the country. Its design was simple yet powerful, Lincoln's profile on the front, and two wheat ears framing the words, 1 cent, on the back. It was elegant, classic, and proudly American. Now, the 1950 wheat penny might not seem like a rarity at first glance. It was produced in large numbers across 3 mint locations, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. In fact, hundreds of millions were made. But here's where it gets interesting, not all pennies are created equal. While the average 1950 penny is still common today, certain ones, thanks to specific combinations of condition, mint location, and rare errors, have become the stuff of legend in the collecting world. Let's talk about errors. Minting mistakes can turn an ordinary coin into a prized possession. For example, a doubled die, where the design appears slightly duplicated, can create unusual and eye-catching effects. Or you might have an off-center strike, where the image is printed incorrectly on the coin. Then there are planchet errors, where the metal blank itself has an anomaly. These small, accidental quirks are what collectors go crazy for, and then there's the condition of the coin. Imagine a 1950 wheat penny that was never used, never passed through a cash register, never sat at the bottom of a coin jar. A penny that still has its original luster, with no scratches or wear. That kind of condition is called mint state, and it dramatically increases a coin's value. Now imagine combining the two, a 1950 wheat penny with a rare minting error and preserved in flawless condition. That's the kind of coin that can change someone's life. Most people who find a 1950 penny in a drawer or a shoebox don't even think twice about it. But those who know what to look for can spot the hidden value. If the mint mark looks a little off, if the text or numbers appear slightly doubled, or if the coin just looks too perfect to be real, then it's time to take a closer look. Because it might not just be old. It might be extraordinary. There have been a handful of 1950 wheat pennies discovered over the years that meet these rare conditions. Some were authenticated by professional grading services and put up for auction, where collectors from around the globe battle to take home a piece of numismatic history. And now, here comes the moment you've been waiting for. One particular 1950 wheat penny, with an exceptional error and in near-perfect mint condition, once stunned the collecting world when it sold for a breathtaking $350,000. Yes. $350,000. For 1 cent. So the next time you're digging through a change jar, or flipping through an old coin album, don't overlook the 1950 penny. Look closely at the mint mark. Examine the lettering. Hold it to the light. Because what might look like just another old copper coin could actually be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Especially, we're taking a deep dive into a small but mighty coin, the 1952 D wheat penny. At first glance, it might seem like just another old 1-cent piece, but don't be fooled. In rare and special cases, this coin could be hiding a secret that has left collectors stunned. So grab your magnifying glass, because this might be the most valuable penny you've ever overlooked. Let's set the scene. It's 1952. The Second World War has been over for several years, but the Cold War is just heating up. Dwight D. Eisenhower has just been elected President of the United States. The baby boom is in full swing, suburbs are growing, and Americans are driving shiny new cars down brand new highways. Amidst all this progress, the Denver Mint was quietly producing millions of pennies, specifically, the 1952 D wheat penny. This small copper coin was part of a long-running design that first appeared in 1909, the Lincoln wheat cent. With Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and two wheat stalks framing 1 cent on the reverse, the design represented both strength and prosperity, values that resonated with an America rising after decades of turmoil and war. The 1952 D penny, minted in Denver, as shown by the small d beneath the year, was one of over 746 million struck that year. That's right, hundreds of millions of these coins were made, and many are still floating around today. So, you might be asking, how could something so common be worth more than a luxury car? The answer lies in a combination of rarity, condition, and error. You see, not all 1952 D wheat pennies are created equal. Most were used in daily transactions, bought candy, paid for newspapers, and clinked around in kids' piggy banks. Over time, they got scratched, worn, and lost their original shine. But a few, a very rare few, were spared the rough life. These coins stayed pristine, untouched by circulation. When professionally graded, such coins are labeled as a mint state and can demand serious attention from collectors, but that's only half the story. What really sends a coin's value soaring is the presence of a minting error. These mistakes can happen in a number of fascinating ways: a double die, where parts of the design appear twice, off-center strikes, where the image is misaligned, repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped more than once, or planchet flaws, where the metal blank itself is defective. These aren't just curiosities, they're one-of-a-kind anomalies that collectors crave. So imagine this: a 1952 D wheat penny, perfectly preserved, never circulated, with a dramatic mint error that makes it completely unique. It's like finding a four-leaf clover in a field of pennies. Now here's something most people don't realize: there are still coins like this out there. They might be hiding in an old box in the attic, tucked into a coin jar, or sitting forgotten in a dusty desk drawer. You could walk past one 100 times and never notice, unless you know exactly what to look for. That's why so many collectors and treasure hunters are turning their attention back to vintage pennies like the 1952 D. Because in the right condition and with the right characteristics, one of these coins can go from 1 cent to a small fortune. And now, let's talk about just how much fortune we're talking about. There was one exceptional 1952 D wheat penny that had it all. It was struck with a noticeable error, preserved in top-grade mint state condition, and authenticated by experts. When this coin hit the auction block, it didn't just sell, it stunned. That single penny was sold for an unbelievable $290,000. Yes, you heard that right, $290,000. For a 1-cent coin. So the next time you come across an old wheat penny, especially one from 1952 with that little D mint mark, don't rush to spend it or toss it in a drawer. Take a closer look. You might be holding a piece of American history, and maybe even your ticket to something big. Next coin, we're digging into the mystery of the 1953 wheat penny, a small copper coin that could turn out to be a giant surprise for the right person. Now, most people glance at a penny and think, it's just a cent. Not even worth picking up off the sidewalk. But if you know what to look for, that tiny piece of copper might actually be holding a secret. A secret that only a few collectors and experts truly understand. So stay with us until the end of this video, because the story of the 1953 wheat penny might just change the way you look at loose change forever. Let's take a moment to step back in time. The year was 1953. The Korean War was still going on. Dwight D. Eisenhower had just taken office as president, and Americans were living in a rapidly modernizing world. Television sets were becoming a household staple, rock and roll was starting to make noise, and post-war optimism was at an all-time high. Amid all of this, the U.S. Mint was producing millions of coins for everyday use, including the now classic Lincoln wheat penny. This series had been in production since 1909, honoring Abraham Lincoln with a clean and timeless design, his profile on the front, and on the back, the two iconic stalks of wheat that gave the coin its nickname. That design stood as a quiet symbol of strength, growth, and American values. In 1953, the wheat penny was struck at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a small d; and San Francisco, marked with an S. Hundreds of millions were made that year. In fact, the Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 250 million. So how could a coin produced in such massive numbers possibly be worth anything more than 1 cent? Here's the twist: while most 1953 wheat pennies are indeed common, a rare few have something incredibly special about them, something that sets them apart from the rest and drives collectors wild. Let's talk about two important factors: condition and error. First, condition. The majority of 1953 pennies were used in everyday transactions. Think of all the places they went, through grocery stores, school lunch lines, gas stations. Over time, these coins picked up nicks, scratches, and heavy wear. But a few were never circulated. Somehow, they were preserved in original, untouched condition. These are the coins that shine like they were made yesterday, and when graded by professionals, they receive what's called a mint state rating. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin becomes. Now, let's add something else into the mix: minting errors. These are rare mistakes made during the production process at the mint. Some 1953 wheat pennies were struck with double dies, meaning elements of the coin's design were accidentally stamped twice, creating a ghost-like doubling effect. Others might have been struck off-center, or on defective blanks called planchets. Each of these errors makes the coin rarer, and collectors absolutely love chasing these anomalies. Combine a near-perfect condition coin with a rare minting error, and you've got a powerful combination. Suddenly, a penny you could have found in an old jar becomes a collector's dream. There have even been stories of these coins sitting untouched in old cigar boxes, safe deposit boxes, and attic collections, completely forgotten for decades, until someone finally realized what they had. And when they brought those coins in for appraisal, jaws dropped, because while most 1953 wheat pennies are worth only a few cents, the truly rare examples, those flawless, error-struck specimens, are in a completely different league. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for: there was one 1953 wheat penny, perfectly preserved in mint state condition, and struck with a rare error that made it one of a kind. When this coin was brought to auction, it didn't just attract attention, it made headlines. Collectors from around the world competed to add it to their collection, and when the final bid was placed, the price reached an incredible $240,000. Yes, you heard that right, $240,000. For a 1-cent coin. So the next time you're looking through your change, or flipping through that old penny album your grandparents gave you, take a moment. Look closely. Because that ordinary-looking 1953 penny might not be so ordinary after all. Last unique coin, we're going to uncover the fascinating story behind the 1958 wheat penny, a coin that many people might pass over without a second thought. But here's the twist: while most of these coins are common, a rare few are worth far more than you can imagine. So buckle up, because this isn't just a story about a cent, it's a story about unexpected value, American history, and the thrill of hidden treasure. Let's rewind the clock to the year 1958. It was a time of optimism and change. America was booming. Elvis Presley ruled the radio, cars were getting sleeker, and families were moving to the suburbs. In the world of money, something subtle but significant was happening. The U.S. Mint was producing what would become the final year of one of the most beloved coin designs in American history, the Lincoln wheat penny. That's right, 1958 was the last year the wheat penny design was minted. Since 1909, Americans had grown up seeing Abraham Lincoln's face on the front of their pennies, with 2 wheat stalks on the back. The wheat design symbolized prosperity, agriculture, and hard work, values that defined the American spirit. But after nearly 50 years, the reverse side of the penny was about to change to the now familiar Lincoln Memorial design, starting in 1959. This made the 1958 wheat penny a historical bookmark. It marked the end of an era. And while the average person didn't notice the significance at the time, collectors and historians would later recognize this as a turning point. Now, let's talk about the coin itself. The 1958 wheat penny was minted in large numbers, over 250 million in Philadelphia, and another 800 million in Denver. So yes, it's true that most of them are not considered rare. You can still find them in circulation, in coin shops, or maybe in a jar on your grandparents' shelf. So why would anyone think these coins could be worth a fortune? Because not all 1958 wheat pennies are created equal. The value of any coin depends on 3 key factors: condition, rarity, and minting errors. And the 1958 penny has one very special variant that checks all three boxes. First, let's look at condition. The vast majority of pennies from 1958 were used, spent, and worn down over time. But a small number were set aside, maybe by accident, maybe by sharp-eyed collectors, preserved in beautiful, mint state condition. These coins still gleam with their original copper shine, with every detail sharp and untouched. Coins in this kind of state are worth significantly more to collectors than those that have been through decades of circulation. Next comes rarity. And here's where things get really interesting. While regular 1958 pennies are common, there's one variant that's anything but, the 1958 double die obverse. This extremely rare error coin was created when the coin die struck the design twice, slightly off alignment, resulting in a noticeable doubling of the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust. The doubling effect is dramatic and easy to spot with the naked eye. If you know what to look for, only a tiny handful of these double die pennies have ever been discovered. Most were likely melted down or used without anyone realizing what they were holding. That's what makes them so rare, and so valuable. When a coin like this is discovered, especially one in pristine condition, it sets off excitement across the numismatic community. Collectors, dealers, and auction houses all scramble for the chance to get their hands on it. And when that rare coin finally hits the auction block, the prices it can command are nothing short of jaw-dropping. So if you've got a 1958 wheat penny lying around, take a closer look. Check the condition. Look carefully at the lettering. You might just be holding a piece of American coin history that's far more valuable than you ever imagined. Now, for the moment you've been waiting for. One of the rare 1958 wheat pennies, featuring the famous double die error and graded in stunning mint condition, was sold for a life-changing total of $200,000. Yes, that's right. $200,000. For a penny. So the next time you're sifting through a handful of change, don't rush to spend it. Because buried among those ordinary coins might be something truly extraordinary. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy discovering the hidden stories behind America's rarest coins, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss out on our next numismatic adventure. Until then, keep hunting, stay curious, and remember, sometimes, the smallest coins hold the biggest secrets.